And then if you are not trained as a trader and knowing about trading assets, and you set yourself up for failure, there's a very emotional thing that's happening. You're feeling something excitement. And usually when you feel that way, you don't want to let go of the feeling. So you don't sell in time and then you lose your money.
This is the Angel Next Door podcast, where we will talk about all things angel investing, what it is, who does it, how do we find them, what does it mean to invest in an early stage company. If you have ever wondered how you can affect the change you want to see in the world, then tune in to learn more.
In this episode, I'm talking with Karima Williams, a trailblazer blending people and technology with deep expertise in crypto, AI, and app creation. Karima demystifies the world of cryptocurrency, shares her journey of building welcoming tech communities, and reveals how AI tools are rapidly evolving from complex code to simple text chains. She opens up about the inspiration behind her hit app, Crash Out Diary, a viral emotional wellness tool captivating thousands of teens and young adults. We also discuss how AI agents can automate your life, why safety matters in tech, and we get a candid view on mental health innovations. Enjoy the show. Well, Karima, welcome to the Angel Next Door podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on here. It's exciting.
I know. I'm really excited to talk to you. Wow, you're like a wealth of knowledge. We met at an event, and I remember talking to you and thinking to myself, oh my gosh, this woman knows so much about crypto, AI, apps. So we're going to talk about all of those things. So start us off. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to learn so much about all this.
Yeah, my background is, I think the best way to describe it is that I've always been a bridge between people and technology. I'm definitely a people person. I love people. I can talk to strangers on the bus, anywhere. I'll let them talk me to death if they wanted to. And my first career job out of college was helping people get onboarded to Obamacare for DC. And I actually started the digital program and got us on Twitter. So we had to be on there because that's where people are. And so that was always a fun experience. And then from that experience, I went into crypto because it was a meetup. I wanted to work in tech, and the meetup scene was really nice, really robust in DC. And so I started to go to meetups and I didn't like them. So I hosted meetups and they weren't horrible, but I was like, they could be better. This could be different. And so I started to host them, and a company named Consensus hired me to do it globally and specifically in the US area, but I got to do some work globally, and that was really fun. And that again was like a front facing consumer and community role where I focused on making crypto feel less challenging and feel less daunting for populations. And so through crypto is how I got into AI, actually, because last year around this time, there was a really big boom between AI and crypto and AI agents. And the conversation there was like the biggest use case for crypto is having AI, and the AI agents spend the money and all these kinds of things. And it started my journey into AI in maybe 2024. And I've been immersed in knee deep since.
Wow. Okay, so wait, you have to tell us, how did you change the meetups so that they were better?
Yeah, so there was this old dude, he was running them. He was so cool. His name was Richard. I would be appreciative of Richard because he was running the DC meetup, and I started to run mine concurrently. So if he had one, I would have one other day because it was still very unified. It was, I had a different flavor I wanted to bring to it. And his was more happy hour oriented. And then one day he was like, Karima, do you want to run these meetups? And I was like, yeah. Because it also was the biggest meetup group in the city. And so mine was a little bit smaller, his was bigger. And so I took his over and I started to just run it. And at that time, I would say fruitful, supple crowd. It was very easy to get sponsorships. It was very easy to get co-working spaces were booming. So it was easy to get a place. And so coordinating, at one point, I probably hosted one meetup a week for a year, by the way.
Oh my
But
gosh, that's a lot.
it was intense, but it was also super easy because there were a few co-working spots that I would just circle around. There was this one law firm that loved sponsoring all the meetups, and the sponsorship would be $250 to $500. Nothing really crazy, really chips, beer, water. And so I was able to do that for a while. And then I would bring different themes into it, like gaming or women in blockchain or trading or how to build a mine or how to do the software aspect. And because I think one thing online, the crypto community is rough. They're they're intense, but in person, it's a different vibe. It's so different. It's so open and welcoming and nurturing almost. And so that's why I was able to get people to collaborate and all sorts of kinds of things and get people to show up and have fun at the meetups.
That's cool. So tell us more about how do we think about crypto? Try to demystify it a little bit for us.
Yeah, it's so funny because working at an agency, like we were just talking to a client and they categorized a group of people. We used to call people like crypto curious, and those are people who were somewhat familiar but like interested, maybe scared to dip. But now like we've like changed it over to crypto aware. People are aware that it exists and like over it, or maybe they would touch it. And so I think that more so it's still internet money, in my opinion, is the easiest way to explain it. And it's a way to do things with your money that you can't do with regular paper money, as far as earning yield or locking it in a smart contract, which is like an if then statement. If this person does this action, then the money does this. And so it's like ways that creatively use money in a new kind of way that is not available with the standard dollar.
And can you give us a couple examples?
I think the best and easiest example is probably this is good. I want to think of something that's like useful, which is my favorite. That was a simple one. It's like being able to earn yield, like the yield, because you're usually like, oh no, not earning yield. I'm gonna say that staking can be a better example because yield is still basically the crypto banks having a lot of money, you putting money with them. They could just offer you more yield because it's a different kind of system versus where if you're staking, you are basically contributing some computing power to the blockchain. And you're saying, hey, here's some computing power. Here's some of my tokens to use so that you can verify transactions in the correct way. And because you're using my computing power to verify transactions in the correct way, I'm able to get a little bit of a kickback. And that is called staking. Staking has been what it used to be really popular with Ethereum. Since then, they've changed from proof of work to proof of stake. So now it is, but it's not as popular because it's more expensive. Like at one point, you need to have 32 Ethereum to really like just do staking and be able to get like a big cut. But that has been like, I think, a really simple esque use case. I try to make something as simple as possible when I realized I haven't really explained some of these in a while
Yeah.
because really people just focus on what can you get now, which is the yields from places like Coinbase and different wallets, even different small crypto wallets will offer you a yield for keeping your dollars there.
Interesting. So how does it work? If I've never done this before, where do they go? What do they do?
If someone's never done it before, I always recommend Coinbase just because Coinbase is tried and true. They're in regulations, they're held responsible or more so in cahoots with the government. And with that dispute, they have more responsibility and they do take it seriously. I've just watched them over the years. And I would say the first thing that you should do is take $100 and put it on Coinbase and earn yield and just see your account increase over time. I think the yield is like 4%, which is a lot higher than you would maybe at another high yield saving account at a regular bank. And once you see that, that's like kind of your gateway to start to explore other assets. But I would always say be curious and learn, attend an event if you can, because there will be someone there to break it down for you in your own language, in your own terms, in your own world. If you're a hairdresser, you're a race car driver, anything you are, someone can figure out a way to explain it to you. And I think that's a better way of acquiring information from other people versus online, because online is just so much more noisy than it was before in the past. And there are a lot more people that are more willing to scam than not. Now, there are still like some channels like on YouTube and some people who are putting out quality information, but I do think that it's just best to learn from other people and to go to events to see how you want to go further into it, because there's lots of ways that you can dig deeper than just having a standard Coinbase account that earns you yield.
So because there's tons and tons of different types of coins nowadays, right?
There's like thousands and thousands, probably millions of different kinds of coins. CoinMarketCap.com is one way to explore those coins. So if someone ever tells you, oh, get this coin, you can go to CoinMarketCap.com. You can look up the coin. You can see the history of it, the price, the exchange that it's listed on, and you can legitimize it that way before doing anything crazy or like going down a rabbit hole.
Yeah. Wow. That's good advice. Because, yeah, we don't want people to just haphazardly go and try to buy stuff, right?
Absolutely not. I learned it the hard way. It's easy to buy into hype cycles. It feels euphoric almost to get into a hype cycle. But if
What's a
you
hype
are,
cycle?
when there is something on the news that's being talked about over and over again, or that's popular, that you like how NFTs, like in art on the blockchain and art in crypto was very popular. So everybody was buying them in 2020 and 2021, and now they're like worthless. And everybody said they would be worthless. But in the moment, all is that this dude's account went from this to this. And so you're like, I want some of that. And you buy into a hype cycle. And then if you are not trained as a trader and knowing about trading assets, then you set yourself up for failure. There's a very emotional thing that's happening. You're feeling something excitement. And usually when you feel that way, you don't want to let go of the feeling. So you don't sell in time and then you lose your money. And so most people don't understand that because this is their first exposure to participating in a financial market outside of being a consumer worker.
Right. Wow. Huh. So then how did you transition from crypto over to really spending more of your time in AI?
Yeah, I transitioned because I was working at a DeFi protocol that focused on synthetic options. So I got like deep into the rabbit hole.
I was
Synthetic
going to say, wow, you just said a lot of words I don't understand.
Yeah, like decentralized finance protocol and options trading. I was new to options trading when I started to work on this protocol. And synthetic options is basically pretend. It's like basically you're getting pretend money to bet on whether the price of an asset will go up or down. And when
Well,
I
that
got
sounds
out of
really
that,
risky.
super, yeah, options trading in general is just risky. And that's why synthetic options was actually less risky because you're not actually using the asset. You're using like a synthetic version of the asset. So you're like playing around with it. But at the end of the day, the company failed. It's a startup. And so after that, I moved on to teaching, just going back to what I like to do, which was teaching crypto. And I would go and explore what was going on. And I just see my goal was like, what can I refer to my friends? What can I like look at and say, hey, like you should use this and not feel embarrassed about or not have to like overly explain it. And I ended up coming up on AI agents. And I had at that point I already was using Claude and chat casually or like for work or just not as heavy as I began to be. And when I learned what an agent, which is like an AI that can, the best way I feel I could describe it is take action. So like a workflow is if this happens and that happens. If they send an email, then this happens. And then this triggers in this spreadsheet or whatever. An agent can take action on its own without having to be triggered by a workflow. When I learned about agents, I thought they were super cool. I tried to build my own agent. I was teaching that live on live stream. And that's how I started to transition more and more to heavily getting into AI because I had to educate myself about what this agent like thing was about and like why would I use it and why was it so cool.
So give us an example.
And the best example is like those bots that can reply on Twitter. So they can like reply contextually to they weaned out now, but at one point they could reply contextually to you on Twitter. That's an old example. I think now it's just gotten crazy. Every day there's a new dang on update that is happening. But another example is I have an agent that searches for grant opportunities based off of a criteria and then sends me a update once a week and then I can reply to it. And if I reply to it and say I'm interested, it'll draft the application for me. So it's
Wow.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. Now, did you have to create the agent?
Yeah, but like now, so I would say a year ago, you would have to know how to code or you would have to know how to use like workflow platforms. But now you can just like the way that I built that agent was through a text message through this other like one other tool I was using. So I was just texting the tool. We were talking. I was talking to it about grants, and then I was like, you know what, I should build a criteria. And I said, well, create an agent. So I had to tell it to create an agent that does X, Y, and Z. And then after based on that, it has a schedule that it follows and I can change it at any time. I can stop at any time. It's not that expensive to run it. Maybe every time it runs, it's like $1. And to me, that's like very valuable because it like automatically is looking and searching for grants based off of a criteria. So I say, I can't move from my home. I'm a Black woman. I'm this age. And it'll be like, oh, well, because you're this, it's finding things that specifically fit that I can have a high likely to do well on. And agents are really like, I feel like going to be something that will be normalized into people's lifestyles like very soon because it's becoming very easy to use them versus before it was like more complex and more scary. And now like I can translate it into an everyday use case that can help like anyone with what they're doing or business owners, especially entrepreneurs, especially.
So, like, you can't go on to ChatGPT right now and make an agent.
You could. They have agentic, so you could like put something on a schedule. I don't think it would be as strong. I know Claude is really like leading the way when it comes to it.
Oh, I see.
With Claude, you could. They have the new co-work feature where it basically has agents and sub agents inside of one chat. So one has a task and it'll give others a task so it can complete one thing at a time. An example is I'm going to make a YouTube video about how to onboard to Claude. So it gave me a script, and at the same time, it gave me LinkedIn post, and it gave me threads and Instagram script and copy, but all in different posts with the different kind of directions and different instructions that I had for each. And I did it like in 2 minutes. It was crazy. I did it this morning. That's an example of like how sub agents can work. And I think the safest tool right now is Claude and Claude Cowork when you want to do stuff that's agentic or to your best ability. There's also something called OpenClaw. I haven't even dug into that because sometimes it's too much. There's too much AI things going on. You want to be good at what you're good at and be confident. And also OpenClaw is open sourced. So you have to understand more security parameters around what you do. There was, I think the head of head of safety at Meta gave OpenClaw access to her emails and it deleted all of her emails.
Oh my.
And she was like, stop. And it was like, it didn't automatically do it. So you have to have just a different kind of knowledge to be able to operate brand new tools, and then also a risk tolerance to be able to operate those tools because they do make mistakes. They're not perfect.
Right.
But that is another one that's like really popular. The person who created it, OpenAI, just actually hired him to work for them. So I'm sure that they will be incorporating more agent type of stuff in their platform too.
Interesting. And so why do you like Claude over like Perplexity or Chat or whatever?
Yeah, it's so funny because one of my friends like kept telling me to use it, and I was like, hey, but I was comfortable with chat. I was like, I'm fine here. She just kept telling me, and I was like, do you work for them? And eventually I tried it out, and I was like, oh, okay. It's a lot. I would say ChatGPT is like the Cliff Notes, and Claude is like the full book of citations. It's more thoughtful, and it challenges your thoughts sometimes, or challenges why you're making the decisions that you're making. And I ended up using it as a technical partner to build Crash Out Diary. And I would basically go in and talk to it about what I was trying to build. It would tell me, like, I remember one day I wanted to build a new feature or something. And it was like, but don't you have this to do? And I was like, what? I was like, yeah, you're right. I should prioritize what I'm supposed to prioritize. But it was so funny to see that it can reflect back on me, my main goal, which was to get this thing done. And it could also like help reflect back to me that I was being distracted by this other thing. And so I really did appreciate that about it. And then over time, the more I learned about Anthropic, they seem to prioritize safety more than any other major AI company. And that is like a part of their constitution, a part of what they talk about. They just stood 10 toes down against the Department of Defense yesterday, where Department of Defense wanted to use Anthropic's model for mass surveillance, and they were like, no. And I was really wondering what was going to happen there. It was scary to be strong armed by the government, I'm sure, because they did have a $200 million contract with them. And so I do to put my energy into companies that clearly are human first, even if it's an AI company.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So you brought up Crash Out Diary. Tell us what made you want to build this app.
Yeah, Crash Out Diary was a child of my divorce and like not having access to healthcare, honestly. I was divorced. I was working for my ex-husband. And so when we broke up, I no longer had a job. And then I no longer had health insurance. And so I had to make it on my own. And I had an emotional regulation coach at the time. And she would help me basically identify bigger themes of around my behavior and patterns and my thinking processes and help me process them. And I had all of our call transcripts. So I uploaded them to a Claude project. And a Claude project is basically like a container for information. Think of it like a way if you were to hire an intern and onboard them, you would give them documentation to read up on. It's the same way a Claude project works, except for it will always reference that data and documentation. So it has a knowledge base to work from. And so that's what I would use that. And I would talk to it. And I was like, okay, I got to think through this because I was still heartbroken, trying to find a new job, still a mother, had to manage everything. And it was intense. And it helped me through a lot of moments where I wanted to share with other people. Like, I know I'm not the only one going through this. I want other people to just experience it and just see how it is. Almost like how my friend was towards me to try Claude. I was like, you should try this project. You should really try it out. And I couldn't share. You can't, like, projects are just in your account. You cannot share them. If you have a team account, you can, but that's still closed because then people leave your team and that's just not the right format. And so when I built Crash Out Diary, it was like a very thin, lightweight version of the project in a fun app form of a mini app. So it was basically a way to release your thoughts, be validated, and play a fun game and have more fun with troubling emotions than saying them out loud or regretting them or posting them online and regretting them. I really wanted people to have a way to not feel shame about what they were doing and have like somewhere to store their stuff online. Well, not store their stuff online, but somewhere to place the emotions and take it away from their reaction so they wouldn't do something they would regret.
So how does it work? People open the app and what do they do?
Yeah, right now it's in the App Store or also it's just the website. And so they go to the website or the App Store and they go through a ritual. And the ritual is you pick a issue that you're dealing with, love, life, work. You pick a companion that you want to hear from. So you want to hear, if you want to laugh, you would go to the sassy best friend persona. If you want a hard truth, you would go to the guy friend persona. And if you wanted like something more empathetic, there's like a big sis persona there. And so you pick one and then you just say how you feel. You can say, I hate him so much for blah, blah, blah. Or I'm really upset because this happened at work and I don't even know how to deal with it. Or I feel small. And it sends you a message back that says, hey, I see you. I hear you. Or the most popular character picked is actually called Chaos Twin. And that's the one that talks trash with you. So people will pick that one. It'll talk trash. So it's at that job. Let's go take a walk. But it'll say something of that nature. And once you're done and you get the message back from the AI, the app will redirect you to do an activity. It'll say, are you so angry or do you want to calm down? If you want to calm down, you can do a breathing exercise. And if you're so angry, you can tap and break a phone in the app. And after that's the end, it's like an end screen. And it sounds long, but it's really quick. It's like you type a message, you get something back, and then you either tap, tap, tap away, or you do a breathing exercise. And that was like the base, like very first MVP version of it.
Nice. So who's using it mainly?
So funny you say that. I built it for me. I built it for my friends. I thought it was funny, but then I posted it online and it picked up really well with high schoolers and college students.
Yep.
My main age range is about 14 to 21 on the app. I know this because so through the app, we've had about 60,000 users since it started.
Wow.
And yeah, when it went viral, it really went viral and people kept using it and they kept coming back. And so when it went viral, it was just me. So I had to build out features as it was getting traction, which was so stressful.
Yeah.
I didn't log in. I had to find someone on Fiverr, help me build a login. Because now those things are like, you can just prompt it. But last year you couldn't prompt everything the way you can now. So I had to build as I go. So like I would build out certain things out over time. I built something called a vault, which gives the user an account and they can save their crash outs. So far, because you can also do this anonymously. You can go through the whole process. Nothing is saved, so, on you. That's a big part of it. But if you don't want to, and you want to save your crash outs, over like 5,000 people created accounts. And from that, there are 28,000 saved crash outs.
Wow.
They're coming back. And from that data that's anonymized, I learn from the data. And I see that like a common thing that people go through is that like they have school issue, best friend drama, parent pressure, testing, new job, and all those issues really correlate with that certain age range of high school and all the way to fresh out of college, got my first new job. There are some outliers of people my age and between that, but the bulk majority of it is in that age range.
Interesting. Wow. Crash outs. I like that. So what's the vision for it then?
The vision is to build a safe space online to be able to regulate emotions with an app. The vision also is to put a human in the loop. And so I've been experimenting with what this looks like realistically. And so one thing that the app will have is like an emergency contact. And it could be anybody, just like a safe person. And the person will be alerted if like you reach a score that is a certain level. So say you're crashing out and it's like getting to a point where it's sounding like maybe suicidal or homicidal. Well, we don't want that one, right? But it can happen. It would be really like naive of me to think that won't happen, that someone won't get that far because crashing out is a crisis moment. So it would lock you out the app and then pop your human up and be like, okay, can you contact this human? So there are certain things that I want to put in there as intervention, but my goal is to meet people where they are. This is a digital age. This age group has really been raised on apps. And so I want to provide them a safe space of like where they already know and then contextualize it and help them become like better regulated themselves. And so the app has a ritual and I'm introducing a companion chat, but I haven't yet because I just want to be able to have safety guardrails on it. And it has mini games, like it has tapping games. You can scream into the phone. It has FU meditations, which are meditations with cursing in it, because the idea is that it meets you in this intense moment in your own language and then it brings you down. Because profanity is one of the main types of like also language used in the app. People are cursing people out all the time. So the idea is you meet them in a language exactly where they are so they feel more compelled to calm down and ground themselves. That's the idea of the meditations that are in the app. And I want to basically expand those mini games and incentivize and like gamify playing them because they become like the exercises and the things that you do to interrupt the pattern that you have. So instead of like when you go crash out, you lash out on someone, you may just play this mini game. Or instead of posting something online that you're most likely going to regret, you may post it in the app instead. And so that my goal is to help people redirect the behavior little by little. 1% a month would be huge to help people get better.
Yeah. Wow. And so you just made this because you wanted it for yourself, basically.
I wanted to, I had it for myself with Claude. I wanted to share it with the world. And then I wanted more. I wanted to have an agent like that text me when I wanted to have it check on me. I wanted to have more structure around like reaching a goal. So if I have different personas, so if the person is self-critical, it may prompt you to say, okay, hey, it educates you. When you're self-critical, this is like your brain hating on yourself. So almost in your own language. And then it goes from that to, okay, tell me 3 nice things about yourself or 3 things that you did for yourself today. And it helps you contextualize and practice these tools. And so I wanted a way to practice more in real time. And so that's why I've started to build more into Crash Out Diary than just having the ritual.
Yeah. Wow. And what about HIPAA and liability about people's actual mental health?
Yeah, so that's huge. And one of the things is that for HIPAA, I'm not still like I'm not a mental health, like it's a wellness app technically. And so I'm like, as long as the data is stored in a proper way, then I'm fine. The data is stored locally on their phones. So they have any opportunity to delete it. We don't like save it. Another thing, what we do, if they save it to the crash vault, we do, but it's anonymized. I don't know who said what. I just know what was said, and that helps me have the safety agent in place. Also, it's not for people under the age of 13. So if they're under 13, they can't use the app. I don't have like official way of blocking it, but it says it in terms and conditions in like the preview or the onboarding because there becomes a whole new world of regulations that comes with people under the age of 13. And then right now, it's a lot of stuff happening like in California, in different states where they are focusing on like crunching down on chatbots, which is why I haven't just dropped mine into the wild yet because I'm working with some like I'm a startup. It's just me right now and 2 other people. And so working with some more professional developers to help me build the safety guardrails into it that are being considered, that are being like flagged by professionals, and then still like keeping the language of wellness. But that's also why it's important to wrap the mini games into it and the gamification to make it more than about a chatbot, but just about a new kind of ritual that someone does. And so that's like how I think about it as far as regulations and safety goes, because it's going to get cracked down on in some kind of way.
Right.
But then there's still companies like this company Ash just raised $93 million to work in the, I know, right? I just found out the other day, I was like, what? But it's good context for me to understand that it's still movement there. It's just that like, how are they positioning and why are they saying what they're saying? How do they get away with this? Because that's huge. $90 to a chatbot company and it's brand new.
Right.
And theirs is 100% mental health, 100% going for the therapist position. I'm not. I'm like, hey, share these notes with your therapist. Use this in between therapy. So that's also a position that I take. This is a tool for you to use. It's not a replacement and it's not intended to be a replacement.
Interesting. Wow. Well, Karima, you are doing some amazing stuff. And thank you so much for coming on the show today and telling us all about it. We learned a lot about AI and chatbots and crypto and apps and crashing out. So I love it. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening. To connect with me, visit my website at marciadawood.com. And please subscribe, follow, and leave a review. It helps the podcast get seen by more people. And remember, you can also find the Angel Next Door podcast on YouTube too. And if you're looking to learn more about investing in the changes you want to see in the world, sign up for Ann and Bill Payne's ACA Angel University classes. Go to theangelcapitalassociation.org, all one word, to find out the schedule. And classes are now available on demand. Many classes are offered, everything from angel investing basics, which include fundamentals, risk, due diligence, term sheets, valuations, returns and portfolio strategy, and even a class on group formation. There's even a deeper dive where you can get advanced classes, including capitalization tables, startup boards, and exit strategies. If you're not already a member of the Angel Capital Association, you can become one for a low price that will give you unparalleled access to discounts, free webinars with a huge archive of content, networking opportunities, and much more. We'd love to have you join us.
All content for this website is informational and not intended to serve as legal, tax, accounting, or investing advice. While Marcia, that's me, does serve on the SEC Small Business Capital Formation Advisory Committee, my views are my own and not the views of the SEC or my fellow colleagues on the committee. Our speakers and hosts are thoughtfully selected for their educational value, but their opinions are their own and do not necessarily represent the views of the host, me, or the Angel Capital Association, and neither specifically endorse the use of presenters' products or services. Listeners of the podcast should consult their own tax, investing, legal, or accounting advisors before making important financial decisions. All warranties, including accuracy, completeness, and suitability for specific purpose, are disclaimed.